Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. One of my favorite clients, folks. The Ogle family has been in the hospitality business since the Great Smoky Mountain National Park first opened. They have a wide array of top-notch properties, and they are 100% focused on making sure your stay in the Smokies is a great one, and that's what makes it easy for me to talk about them, is they are so focused on meeting your needs and making you satisfied. Parkside Cabin Rentals, parksidecabinrentals.com to learn more, to look at their floor plans, to pick your own cabin. Go see them today. All right, let's take a look at the numbers from Josh Heupel's first year. This is 2016 when he was the offensive coordinator at Missouri. They had been horrible the year before he got there. His first year, they were first in the SEC in total offense, 500 yards a game. Fifth in the SEC in scoring offense, 31 points a game. Eighth in rushing offense, 200 yards per game, and second in the SEC, nearly 300 passing yards per game. My question number 5 overall, should the Volunteer fans expect those kinds of numbers in Heupel's first year at Tennessee? Anyone?
Nope.
Yeah, probably not to that level. No. Go ahead.
I think Tennessee will have the most improved offense in the league numbers-wise, which isn't saying a whole lot. But they're not going to put up 500 yards a game. They're not going to average almost 300 yards or 200 passing and 200 rushing. I don't see that. I don't think they're good enough or capable of doing that at this point. But I do think they'll be the most improved offense in the SEC.
Yeah, I think for Tennessee's offense, I mean, the bar is on the floor currently, so it's going to be better. But I think the biggest thing that sort of gets overlooked with this offense is the best types of this offense really dominate on the offensive line, are absolutely control line of scrimmage every year, and I don't think they have that just yet. You can have the speed and the backs and all that stuff. They'll put up some numbers when they play the Bowling Greens and the Vandy's and the Tennessee Techs of the world. 50, 60 points are going to be in play, but over the course of the season, 500 yards, no, not quite to that level, but maybe 400, maybe 350, something like that.
Yeah, in 2016, they had a couple of non-conference games where their numbers were so outrageous that it allowed them to balloon up a little bit. And against Bowling Green, Tennessee Tech in the first 3 games, if Tennessee's ready to go, that could help get close. What Tennessee needs, actually in some cases, is better SEC numbers than what they had in 2016. So overall, I would say no, but what Missouri did in the SEC, yeah, I think they could do that and actually be better.
Well, I'll also say this. Missouri that year went 4-8.
Yeah. Now,
Josh Heupel was the offensive coordinator, not the head coach, but they were 4-8 despite all those incredible offensive numbers. I would say this, though, I agree with you. I don't think Tennessee fans should expect those kind of numbers. However, if you had asked me in 2016, looking at Missouri's offense and what he had, and it's not like a lot of those guys wound up in the NFL. I mean, the running backs, the receivers that ate Tennessee alive for a couple of years there, those guys didn't have long stays. I would have said, I don't think Missouri can make that kind of a jump either. So there's part of me that says, are we missing the boat here because he's done it with smoke and mirrors before? I would agree the answer is no. Then the other question is, SEC defense is better in 2021 than they were in 2016, or are they worse overall?
Yeah,
you can make a case that they're worse.
I think Tennessee's schedule, there will be some games mentioned maybe even in conference where you're thinking, okay, if they're not ready to go, but I think that comes back to offensive line play.
It didn't have Drew Lock.
Agreed. They did have Drew Lock. Yep. They did have Drew Lock, who after his time at Missouri said that he appreciated Derek Dooley for getting him more pro-ready than Josh Heupel, which I thought was interesting because no one had heard of Drew Lock until Josh Heupel got there. Don't know if Derek Dooley could have gotten him on the map the way that Josh Heupel did by having him throw for 300 yards a game. But he did have Drew Lock. But you look at the guys that, you're getting 200 yards rushing, 300 receiving yards. Look it up. Those guys who just smoked Tennessee for a couple of straight years there did nothing in the NFL. So now one thing that's a question, though, I didn't go back and look at how many Missouri offensive linemen are still dancing around in the NFL off that team. So maybe there were some. Anyway, I don't think you should be expecting that, but there's a part of me that thinks I wouldn't have said Missouri could make that jump either. So, what is the single most important statistic for Tennessee this fall? What number will stand out as the main reason they win or lose games? Number one statistic for Tennessee.
Not to be oversimplistic, but takeaways and defensive third down percentage. You got to steal possessions. You can't stay on the field with this. You got to give your offense as many opportunities as possible. And the defense, they're going to struggle to stop people. They don't have the bodies. They don't have the depth. Get off the field, steal possessions. You win those 2 categories, 4-8 becomes 6-6, 7-5 in a hurry.
Okay.
I'm probably pretty simple on this in points per game. I think they got to score a lot of points. I don't think the defense will be that good. They got to sustain drives in doing that, but I think it's going to be points per game, and that also will generate some excitement among your fan base.
Okay.
My stat will help Jimmy's and help if David's doesn't go right. I'm going to go big explosive plays on offense. They were awful last year, and UCF was really good, arguably the best in the country last year. So big plays, depending on what Josh Heupel looks at, but 20-plus, 30-plus, 40-plus yard plays, they need more plays down the field if the offense is going to hit its potential.
10-yard plays.
Yeah, sure. First downs, we can look for those too.
I will go turnovers. That's the most important stat for any team at any level of football every year. You can do the math. It's like if you turn the ball over 3 times, you never win. If you get 2 turnovers, your chances of winning go through the roof. It's turnovers. However, I looked it up. I thought this was an interesting stat. Not sure if this stat tells you that if you do this, you'll win games, or if this is a byproduct of what they're doing when they're leading. But at the end of the year, when you look back at Tennessee, I think you can look at the number of rushing attempts. Looking back at Josh Heupel's 17 games against SEC opponents, 8 the first year at Missouri, 8 second year at Missouri, and then he went against LSU in a bowl game when he was head coach at UCF. When you look at those, in the wins, he averaged 14 more rushes than passes. In the losses, 2 more rushes than passes. So they're running a lot. Is that because they've got a lead and they're finally trying to eat some clock? Maybe. But I think at the end of the year, if you look back and see that Tennessee's had a pretty good year, you're probably going to see that the number of rushing attempts is way higher than we might have thought going into the year. All right, what's the most important game of the season? And will Tennessee go bowling this winter? That is a tougher question than just will they win 6 games. So we'll get into that next on the Sports Source. Come on back.